Have to worry about the things that you need to do. And so it was very quick of a transition from be doing something, do something right now, do something later, plan what you're going to do in the next year or two if the world does or does not end, into kind of being like, well, wow, today's kind of just a repeat of yesterday. And so that loop kind of made me realize that life is definitely too short to take for granted. And when you get the chance to take a break, take that break. To quote Leanne Womack in the song I Hope You Dance, when you get the choice to sit out or dance, I hope you dance. And that's exactly what I did my spring break. I didn't dance, but I did me things, you know. I didn't pay attention to work, assignments, emails, whatever. If you tried to reach me last week and I didn't respond, it is because of this, and I am not sorry for not being sorry, but it's important, you know, because especially considering that being in college kind of bought me 4 more times to kind of just do whatever. Like I was out of school for 3 years, right? I did my 3 years of hard work trying to survive day by day. Now I'm back in school and I'm like, wow, the system that we live in is very annoying and not at all sustainable for a happy lifestyle. So because things are the way that they are doesn't mean that that's the way that they always need to be. And we are the people that can change it because we're the ones that are currently living this life, you know? So, yes, did a lot of nothing, did a lot of internet browsing. I hadn't really gotten to do that in a while. My days kind of go wake up, work out, eat lunch, go to class, go to work, go to meetings, come home, do homework, maybe play a video game or two, go to sleep, rinse, repeat. Oh, and shower, speaking of rinse, repeat, right? And so I don't have the time to like scroll on like the internet anymore. Like I remember I used to spend so much time just kind of like seeing what was up in the world, like watching the news, watching YouTube videos, seeing what was trending. I realized this because there was a new song. This is a very dumb reason to realize it. There was a new song out by Justin Bieber. And I didn't even know that there was a new song out by Justin Bieber. And anyone that's known me for long enough knows that I'm obsessed with Justin Bieber. And that is the original artist that got me into artists as entities and as, I guess, thought-provoking conversational pieces. So for me to not realize that Bieber had put out a whole song was when I was like, man, I've been buried in work. And this is aside from the fact that I keep picking up projects that I don't actually have to do. I'm not getting paid for. I'm not getting credit for them. So why am I doing them? Because I'm a good person? Because I want to help out? Because I'm pretentious and want to be involved in anything? Whichever way you want to read that. The, like, unarguable fact is that I'm doing way too much. And so, anyway, this is a very long tangential way to say over the break, I was scrolling and collecting internet stories because the same way that I like having guests sit here and talk about, you know, whatever it is that's on their mind, I love when people do that on the internet. It's so cool. It's so exciting. It's so fun. And this week's collection comes from Reddit. There was a thread I saw that was like, what is, you know, a story that you have been wanting to tell but haven't gotten the chance to do so. And that resonated with me because one of my roommates stayed here for break, and through break, we would kind of just wander out of our rooms and run into each other like in the kitchen or in the living room or something and be like, hey, so like, what are you up to? And then that would like escalate into a conversation about whatever it is that we had been like thinking about and what it reminded us of in our previous experiences in life. And so kind of like that, where you're just kind of like waiting for the opportunity to tell this story. That's exactly what this thread was. And so I kept reading, and some of the stories I had read before, other stories were new, and they were really cool. So I thought I would share some of my favorites with you, and we could have a nice chill little story time to end the weekend. But without further ado, let us do that. Before we hop into the stories, I did mention that Bieber has a new song, so we're of course going to take a song break to listen to it. The song is Attention by Justin Bieber and Omah. that was Attention by Justin Bieber and Omah. So, like I said, I have a collection of Reddit stories that I wanted to go through because, like I said, some of these I love, some of these were new to me. Either way, it's all good times. So, let's do that. The first one, and this is one that I think about a lot, is one of my favorites. I'm gonna essentially just read them to you, and no spoilers, because I want you to experience them as we read along. Also, thank you so much, Mac on Twitch, for hanging out with us for a year. It's a long time to be listening to the show, long time to be watching the behind-the-scenes streams of it. Like I said, if you want to be a part of the conversation, you can always tweet us at PODKASTXK or join on Twitch at twitch.tv/KARLYGIIRL. Or if not, just watch the show on wexfm.com. So, this is a story by user rbradbury1920 on Reddit. It says, on the 15th of April, I found a yellow post-it note in a handwriting that wasn't mine on my desk, reminding me of some errands I had to do, but told literally nobody about. While odd, I chalked it up to something I did in my sleep, thinking maybe in my half-awake state I scrawled it so it didn't appear to be my handwriting. I threw it out and thought little of it. On the 19th, I found another post-it note on the back of my desk chair in the same handwriting as the previous note, telling me to make sure I saved my documents. I was freaked out, but there were no other signs of a break-in, so I set up a webcam in my house, aimed at my desk, used a security cam app for it to record detecting movement. On the 28th, I woke up to find another post-it note, this one saying, "Our landlord isn't letting me talk to you, but it's important we do." I immediately checked the webcams folder on my computer and found nothing from the night before, but my computer's recycling bin had been emptied, which I am certain I did not do recently, indicating someone had noticed the webcam and deleted the files. They were saved straight to a folder on my desktop called Webcam. Today, on the 1st of May, I found another post-it note, this time on the outside of my door with nothing written on it. And there also appeared to be post-its on many other doors in my apartment complex, all blank in varying colors. Do I have any legal recourse here? I have no proof except for the post-its, but those are written by pen and on my post-it note, so conceivably I could have faked them. Would contacting the police get me into any trouble? If they can't determine an outside source for this, I just want to make sure I'm not wasting anyone's time. Do I consult my landlord? Those also living in the complex? I pulled up a letter I received from my landlord when I moved in, and the handwriting is identical. Could this count as evidence? So, that's the original post, right? And then the top comment on this post says, "You seem sincere, and this doesn't appear to be the plot of a Ray Bradbury short story. It's possible that your landlord is leaving notes inside your apartment, but they don't make any sense in the context you're describing them. It's likely that you're writing the notes yourself, but you're forgetting. Do you use post-it notes as a reminder in any other parts of your life or job? This may be a mental health issue. You might be experiencing some sort of dissociative disorder, or it may be a physical problem. You mentioned you have a very unusual, narrow bedroom with no windows. Is there a chance you're not getting enough ventilation when you sleep, or that there's a carbon monoxide leak in the building? A cheap CO detector, which you should have anyway, is a fast way to find out. You'll also have had really bad headaches if this is so. You know your own medical and mental history and your other experiences. If you think these incidents might be you, writing notes to yourself, there's no shame in getting somebody qualified to give you an opinion." So that's where that comment ends. The original person comments that they have had really bad headaches, they have a CO detector, but it hasn't triggered anything. And so that was that for a while, right? And then a bit later, there's an update post, just one sentence. "Thanks to everyone who sent suggestions and gave advice on how to proceed, especially to those who recommended a CO detector, because when I plugged it in, it read 100 ppm. So this guy thought that his landlord was stalking him, but all along it was just CO poisoning." That's crazy. Someone on the internet left a random comment on a post asking for legal advice for stalking, only to find out that it wasn't anything near as sinister. It was literally just like a carbon monoxide leak somewhere in in the space. Isn't that crazy? Like, everything that we love and hate about the internet, the one thing that I think is invaluable that we will forever be able to benefit from is the information that we have access to. Because, like, maybe no one in your circle is aware of this even being an issue, which is crazy. I think about this one a lot because it's easy to read something like this and be like, oh, you know, he's stalking him, especially nowadays whenever, like, true crime is so popular. And you're so quick to be like, oh, man, this is it. This is over. But carbon monoxide poisoning. Who knew? Wild. So that was the first story I had set apart, just because that one always has, like, drawn out to me, because there's moments, I think, in which we're all, like, in a phase of, I guess, paranoia, where it's like, oh, dude, everyone's after me, where it's like, nope, just something completely different, innocuous, not at all what you originally considered. I have another story that I liked. This one's completely nothing to do. There's no theme for these, by the way. These are literally just things I saw that I thought were interesting. This is very much genuinely just story time on podKast with a K. This one is by user Yoinky2013. When I was 15 years old, I ran away from home because I was pissed off at my parents for a reason I can't remember. I didn't have much money, so I decided to hop onto the SkyTrain, a public transport train in British Columbia. I rode it as far as it would go and reached the end of the line in less than an hour. I decided then that I wanted to ride it all the way back, while trying to formulate some kind of plan as to how I wanted to live the rest of my life without parents or anyone. At the last stop, or the first stop, depending on your perspective, a girl came on and sat in the row right behind me. I didn't pay much attention to her at first, as I was busy writing my life plan on a napkin. It was a few minutes later that she got up and came and sat next to me, curious as to what I was writing. I told her the whole story, and after a few laughs, we began talking about everything and anything. Her name was Amanda, 17, absolutely wonderful. She told me she was getting off at the last stop, which was also the first stop, depending on how you look at it. It was also the stop I'd gotten on originally, and I told her we would ride it together. The train ride took less than an hour, and what a wonderful hour indeed. When the last stop did come, we both knew we probably wouldn't see each other ever again, because this was before the days of cell phones, and I was a shy little kid afraid to make a move. As we got to the end of the sidewalk, which split into two different directions, she went right and I went left. Before saying goodbye, she turned to me and asked a question that has become a wonderful part of my life. She asked me, "Tell me something you've done or want to do that you think I should do. It could be anything, as challenging as you want it to be or as easy. As long as you give me the rest of my life to complete it, I promise I will do it." I was confused at first, but I thought about it and I told her, "Sing a song a cappella in a room full of strangers." She said, "Perfect," and asked me if I would like a challenge as well. I told her I did, and she told me, "Read from start to finish Ulysses by James Joyce." I'd never heard of it at the time, but I agreed, and we said our goodbyes. I have an awful memory and can't remember most of the conversations I had with most people, but I remember all of that so clearly. And you know why? Because of the challenge. In the 12 years that have passed since, I've tried to read that book in over 150 different sittings. Every time I open my copy of the 780-page monster of a book, I always think of her, and I always think of that day. I've never been sure if it was her intent or not, but she left a lasting memory on me with that challenge. I soon after learned what she did was a completely wonderful and amazing thing for me, so I decided to keep it going. I've met a lot of strangers in my life, some that have become friends, and some, due to living in different time zones and whatnot, didn't. I don't want to just have experiences and let them go. I want to remember these meetings and embrace the fact that they happened. So whenever I leave someone who's left an amazing impact on my life, I always make sure to add them to my own Ulysses bucket list. I ask them to give me a challenge as difficult as easy, regardless of the fact that they've done it or not, just something that their heart has always wanted to do. Some have been easy and fun. I met a man in India 9 years ago who told me, for a week or a month, cook or buy twice as much food as I intend on eating and give the other half to a stranger in need. I completed that mission 8 years ago and thought about the man and the time we had all the way through. I met a girl on a cruise 6 years ago who told me to jump into a body of water on a slightly cold day without touching or feeling the temperature first. I did that the very same year. I met a couple at an outdoor music festival a few years ago who told me to wear the most bizarre outfit imaginable and walk through a public place, completely oblivious to the fact that you aren't looking normal. I did that task the very next day, same festival. Some have been difficult, to say the least. 3 guys I met in Amsterdam and smoked all night with told me to go to the mall and give 10 strangers 10 presents. That one took a lot of courage, but I did it about a year or so after I met them. It was nerve-wracking, but at the same time exhilarating and made me leave my comfort zone. A girl I met on a plane told me to skydive. I'm still in the process of getting that done. A couple I met in Cali on the beach told me to tell 5 people that I hated most that I love them and respect them. That one was very difficult because of my stubbornness, but I've come close to completing that list many times. It's still in the process, and I have 2 people more to go. And some things have had an everlasting impact on my daily life. I met a girl at a music festival who told me whenever I get mad at someone, walk away, sing my happy song in my head for 5 minutes, and go back to the person with a calm heart and mind to work things out. This is what I've made my new way of life. I once met a man at a gym in a hotel I was staying at that told me whenever your body and brain tells you that you're exhausted and done, use your heart instead and push out 2 more reps. I've made this my motto when working out or working on any kind of extenuating exercise in which my body demands me to quit. I also use it while working on anything and while studying. One of the best pieces of advice I've ever received. There are many others that each brought joy to my life. There are many tasks I have yet to accomplish, and every time I think of these tasks, I think of the people that gave them to me. It amazes me how well I remember all these people, and while I can't remember many aspects of yesterday, these experiences, not only do I take them from a mission to a challenge, but I also take them from a memory that never fails to appear inside of my mind. I opened my Ulysses book for maybe the 300th time yesterday and read a few pages, which prompted me to share this story with you today. I'm in the final 30 pages of the book, also known as the most dreaded to read. In these last 40 pages or so, James Joyce doesn't use a single punctuation mark. No periods or commas or anything, just a 50-page run-on sentence. I never saw Amanda after that day, nor do I know if she ever got the chance to sing a song to a room full of strangers, but what do I know? All I know is that she gave me a gift that I never once stopped giving. So wherever she may be, I'd like to thank her for giving me the Ulysses bucket list, and I swear I'll finish it one day. My life advice? Simple. Create your own bucket list. So this one I thought was great because this is kind of how I interact with people now. At some point I was watching some sort of interview or panel or something, and whoever it is, I think it was Jared Padalecki, back when I was obsessed with Supernatural. I think it was the interview panel, and someone asked him something similar, right? Like, what is something someone said that stuck with you or whatever? And his answer was to embrace the fact that you can learn something from anyone or anything, right? And even if all you learn is that you don't get along with whoever it is that you're talking to in that moment, you learn something and you're able to kind of assess and analyze why. And so I've mentioned that quote before, but never like in full explanation like this, to like, that's kind of how the podcast got to be where it is. In recent friend groups, I've had people tell me that they think it's interesting that I'll talk to anyone about anything, which I thought was an interesting thing to say, because even though I do have this podcast with the goal of talking to new people and learning new things from everyone, I am still kind of in my heart of hearts an introvert. So it's really cool to kind of see how other people perceive this mentality and the impact that it has on everyone individually. Abby says that AITA posts have become her new favorite things. These are from a subreddit which people pose a question to ask whether or not they're in the right or in the wrong, objectively, and like they'll post their whole story and have people kind of give feedback. I went through a phase where I was obsessed with those posts also, but at some point it was just kind of like, I think you guys are all just looking for validation as to why you're not wrong, and a lot of y'all are wrong. But I mean, that's the whole point of the subreddit, is objective feedback and critique. It just got taxing for me. But guess what? In this story about the Ulysses bucket list, which is something that I very much plan on bringing into my life, somebody commented that they thought that they knew the girl, Amanda, but somebody left a comment and was like, I think your Amanda is my friend Amanda. And they wrote to each other and figured out that that was the girl from the train all these years ago before the internet, which is crazy. Again, the internet is a crazy, terrifying, lawless, vast land, But these are the moments that I live for, dude. You can learn so much from like anyone, and just the kindness of a stranger will lead you to this. That is so freaking cool. Because like, imagine being able to reunite with somebody. That's amazing. But yeah, really cool story. Really obsessed with it. So if you're listening here, or if you're chatting along, I would like to impart this Ulysses bucket list to all of y'all. Ask somebody for a challenge. You have the rest of your life to complete it. Add it to your bucket list and do the thing. All right, I have another story for you. Let me click right on over to it. All right, so this one is not as heartwarming, but just kind of one that's like in one of those like weird, crazy, like weird things that the mind does, which you all know by now that is a genre of stuff that I like. So the question posed here was, have you ever felt a deep personal connection to a person you met in a dream only to wake up feeling terrible because you realized they never existed? Oh my God, this story made me cry. So this person writes in a throwaway account because the story is personal to them. It reads, my last semester at a certain college, I was assaulted by a football player for walking where he was trying to drive. He was about 300 something pounds and I was about 100 something. While unconscious on the ground, I lived a different life. I met a wonderful young lady who made my heart skip and my face red. I pursued her for months and dispatched a few jerk boyfriends before I finally won her over. After 2 years, we got married, and almost immediately, she bore me a daughter. I had a great job, and my wife didn't have to work outside of the house. When my daughter was 2, my wife bore me another son. My son was the joy of my life. I would walk into his room every morning before I left for work, and I would just dote on him and my daughter. One day while sitting on the couch, I noticed that the perspective of the lamp was odd, like inverted. It was still in 3D, but wrong. It was a square lamp base, red with gold trim on 4 legs, and a white square shade. I was transfixed. I couldn't look away from it. I stayed up all night staring at it, and the next morning I didn't go to work. Something was just not right about that lamp. I stopped eating. I left the couch only to use the bathroom at first, and soon I stopped that too, since I wasn't eating or drinking. I stared at that lamp for 3 days before my wife got worried, and she had someone come and try to talk to me. But by this time, my cognizance was breaking and my wife was freaking out. She took the kids to her mother's house just before I had my epiphany. The lamp wasn't real. The house wasn't real. My wife, my kids, none of it was real. The last 10 years of my life were not real. The lamp started to grow wider and deeper. It was still inverted dimensions, and it took up my entire perspective, and all I could see was red. I heard voices, screams, all kind of weird noises, and I became aware of pain. So much pain. The first words I said were, I think I'm missing teeth. I opened my eyes and I was laying on my back on the sidewalk, surrounded by people I didn't know. So many people were freaking out and I was very, very confused. At some point, a cop scooped me up and walked me across the sidewalk and grass and threw me face down in the back of a cop car. I was still confused. I was taken to the hospital by the cop because he didn't seem to want to wait for an ambulance to arrive and given CT scans. I went through about 3 years of horrid depression because I was grieving the loss of my wife and children and dealing with the knowledge that they never even existed, and I was scared that I was going insane, crying myself to sleep hoping just to see her in my dreams again. I never have, but sometimes I see my son, typically a glimpse out of my peripheral vision. He's perpetually 5 years old, but I can never hear what he says. That's crazy. Tell me that's not crazy. Have you guys ever had that happen? Where you dream up something or someone, a scenario, and you wake up and it doesn't exist anymore? That's absolutely wild to me. There's a lot of comments in this post of people that had similar stories, but this one reminded me of 2 different dreams that I used to have recurringly. One was of being at a store or at a park or something, and there was this man. It was always the same, like, pale, tall man with a, like, graying beard. I don't remember if he wore glasses or not, really imposing, but the type of man that would try to be like friendly, but you knew that something was off. And I never knew who he was or why my brain manifested him, but it was really, really hard to like conceptualize it because he came up in different dreams at different points in time, different scenarios. And at some point I was you guys know me, I like to believe in signs and like whatever, and like although dream analysis is cool, like, oh, you dreamt of a fox, that means that you're gonna meet someone interesting, like that's all cool and stuff, but I also like the other side of dream analysis in which you try to understand why your brain manifested something. And to this day I have no idea who that man is, but anytime that like he would show back, I haven't had him appear in a dream in a while, but anytime it happened it would be terrifying, and I don't know anyone that matches that description. I've like, even when I'm like, whenever I would have that dream, we would go to like the store or a restaurant or something, and I would look around and I would never like see somebody that resembled them. And now on the internet, you know, I can click through and like I'll look through people's pictures and stuff, and I've never ever ever found that man. I don't know who he is or why my brain is so terrified of this guy, but that's crazy. So that's like a scary one. And then kind of on something similar to this one, there was a couple of nights more recently that it happened in which I had recurring dreams of like really good conversations with people that one was with people that I knew, one was with people that I didn't know, but similar vibe, similar space. And at some point I realized that I was dreaming, tried to wake up, couldn't wake up, finally woke up, right? The thing is, I did this like 4 or so times in a night where I kept waking up and I wasn't actually awake. I was just waking up within the dream. And that one was scary because it wasn't, 10 years like this guy lived an entire life where he had a wife and kids. But for me, that was terrifying because this dream was like, I don't know, like a few days worth. And whenever I looked at the time, it had not even been like 2 hours that I was asleep. So in 2 hours, I lived like almost a week. And that was insane to me. Because then when I woke up, I didn't know if I was awake or not awake, or what part of it was real. Because in the dream, I would wake up. And there's sometimes when, like, you wake up in a dream, you turn back over and go to sleep, right? The second or third time it happened, I was so shook and I was like, well, no, I need to prove myself that I'm awake. So I would get up, I would go shower, I would go like make matcha or something. And then I would wake up again. And it's like, dude, what does this mean? Why am I caught in a dream loop? And then whenever I saw that it had only been a couple of hours that I was asleep, I was like, bro, this is just not right. Not fair. Not fun. So all in all, sleep is terrifying. Brains are weird. Dreams, scary. I don't like it. And y'all wonder why I don't sleep. Abby says she dreamt she met Taylor Swift the other night and will never forgive herself for waking up from that one. SMH indeed. I have had dreams where I've met Justin Bieber. He's a cool guy, but he's exactly as you would expect him to be. On a more lighthearted note, this question was, who is the dumbest person you've ever met? And this story to me just kind of stood out because I feel like we all know people like this, at least one. And if you don't, man, oh man, if you ever meet them, it's life-changing to realize that there are people who do everything right, people who do everything wrong, but everyone's still just kicking it, right? And so this is a post by Noah the Red. It says, it's not uncommon as a teacher to have students who are a bit behind the curve in certain aspects, but 99% of the time they're keen on something. They might not understand how to identify a noun or what the theme is, but they somehow know how to make a mean plate of nachos. You learn pretty quick not to judge fish for their tree climbing ability, you know? I thought this was the rule when I was teaching until I met Kevin. Kevin isn't his real name, but it doesn't matter because he probably couldn't spell it anyway. Kevin was a student of mine during my last year of teaching. He came to my classroom with very little to show for his academic past. He had moved a few times and was therefore missing a lot of test scores that we used to try and ballpark their ability. It is just a ballpark, so we don't make any major decisions until we've had a time to talk and work with the student for a bit. So I thought, that's fine. I'll just do some one-on-one with Kevin and see what's up. One-on-one with Kevin was like conversing with someone who'd forgotten everything in a freak, if not impossible, amnesia incident. There was no evidence that he had learned anything from the past years of schooling, nothing beyond 2nd grade, and now he was in 9th grade. Flabbergasted, I figured we needed to get more serious with this. If he was going to be in my class, I needed to know why and how. I decided to meet with him, his guidance counselor, his parents, and another teacher to see what was really going on. This is where it all became clear. It was by some incredible fluke that his family hadn't been wiped off the face of the earth years ago. Odds are his entire heritage was based on blind luck and some type of sick divine intervention that saves his family every time a threat presents itself. Kevin was the genetic pinnacle of this null achievement. Even my instructional lead, a woman who could find the redeeming trait in a Balrog, failed to see any reason that this kid or his family could somehow still be alive today. So here's the list of events that made it abundantly clear that God exists and he's laughing uncontrollably. Kevin frequently forgot when and or where class was. On more than one occasion, I had to retrieve him from other classrooms. He also ate an entire 24-pack of crayons, threw it up, and then did it again the next day. This is 9th grade. I have no idea where he even got crayons. Kevin's dad wrote tuition checks and mailed them to me, the English teacher. This was a public school. When I gave it back to Kevin, voided, to give to his dad with a brief note explaining that this was a public school and tuition was not necessary, Kevin would get in trouble for trying to spend it at the 7-Eleven after school. Kevin was removed from the culinary arts program after leaving a cutting board on the gas stove and starting a fire twice. Kevin threw his lunch at the school resource officer and tried to run away. He ran into a door and insisted it hadn't been him that had thrown his lunch. Kevin stole my phone during class. I called it, it rang, and he denied that it was ringing. Not that it wasn't his, not that he stole it, but that it was ringing as it was actively ringing. He did this 3 times before the end of the year. Kevin's mom could never even remember what school he went to. She missed several meetings because she drove to other schools in the area, none of which Kevin had ever been to. Kevin stole another student's iPhone and tried to sell it back to them. Kevin also did not understand that his grade was dependent on quizzes, tests, homework, classwork, and participation. He finished his first semester with a 3% average, and he tried to bribe me with $11. He didn't know that dogs and cats were different animals. He regularly tried to cheat on assignments by knocking the pile over, grabbing one before I picked them all up, and writing his name on it wherever there was room, on top of the other students' names. Kevin and his parents took a trip to Nassau, and I don't even know how they got airline tickets, and they forgot all of their luggage at home. I did not believe when he told me until I talked to his mom, who told me that first thing when I saw her at the bi-weekly meeting. And so that's where this ends. And then all of the comments are like, nah, this is insane. That's crazy. No way this is real. And other people are like, no, you can't make this up. And so the reason that I'm saying, like, this reminds me of people that I've known in the past, particularly, was the line about Kevin being removed from a culinary art program after leaving a cutting board on the gas stove and starting a fire twice. When I was in high school, I did dual enrollment. So, like, all of my, like, upper level classes were with the community college. And in chemistry class, there was a guy in my lab who was probably a good 7 or 8 years older than me. So I would have been maybe 15. So this kid was 20 something, you know, old enough to know how to behave in a chemistry lab. The most notable incident to me, because every time that we had an actual experiment to do, he astounded me that he lived his life like this and was never hurt, never injured, really lucky, had amazing grades. I just do not understand, because my favorite incident was that he somehow managed to set on fire the fireproof gloves. I don't know how. There was no open flame. There was no open gas. All we were doing was like sparking something to heat it up for about 15-20 seconds because we were trying to get it to crystallize, put it away. Nowhere near enough time for it to set on fire. But like as we were doing things, he was just messing with stuff, putting it away, and he doesn't even put it out. He just kind of holds the glove and he's like, cool. And we're all over here like writing, trying to make sure we have all of our numbers and our measurements right. And we look over to him and we're like, oh my God, dude, what did you do? And he's like, I don't know. It's on fire though. And we're like, that's fireproof though. And then at the same time, everyone's like, wait, dude, put it out. Because he's just been standing there for like minutes just looking at this fireproof glove be on fire instead of putting it out or doing anything about it. And I thought it was so funny that none of our immediate instinct was also to put it out. We were kind of just like astounded that he had managed to set it on fire. And to this day, I can't forget it. And every day was something like that. Every single day for that entire semester, there were moments like that. And I'll never be able to shake them because they were so freaking funny to me that they even happened. It was great. It was such a fun year. Now his brother's married to one of my best friends from high school, small town life type vibes, you know. But regardless, hilarious. I think about that kid often and just hope that he's okay in life. My last favorite story from Reddit is also one of those feel-good ones, and this is also another one that I had read before, but that has stuck with me. And like, this is a story that I like to the point that I've like made my parents sit down and read it, just because I was like, you guys, you have to see this. This is so cute. So, here is that one. Just about every time I see someone, I stop. Oh, sorry. Well, I guess I should start. The question is, have you ever pitched up a hitchhiker? And so they start with, just about every time I see someone, I stop. I kind of got out of the habit in the last couple of years because I moved to a big city, and so my girlfriend wasn't too stoked on the practice because of safety. But then something happened to me that changed everything, and I'm back to offering rides habitually to anyone who needs them. If you would indulge me, it's a long story that has almost nothing to do with hitchhiking other than the fact that it happened on the road. The past year, I've had 3 instances of car trouble. A blown out tire on the freeway, a bunch of blown fuses, an out of gas situation. All of them were while driving other people's car, which for some reason makes it worse on an emotional level. It makes it worse on a practical level as well, due to the fact that I carry things like a jack and extra pieces in my car and know enough where not to park, facing downhill on a steep incline, with less than a gallon of fuel. Anyway, each of these times that something has happened, I've been disgusted by how people would not even bother to help me. I spent hours on the side of the freeway waiting, watching roadside assistance vehicles blow past me for AAA to show. The 4 gas stations I asked for a gas can told me that they couldn't loan them out for my own safety, but that I could buy a really bad 1-gallon one with no cap for $15. It was enough each time to make you say something like, wow, this country's going to hell in a handbasket. But you know who came to my rescue all 3 times? Immigrants. Mexican immigrants. None of them spoke a lick of the language, but one of these dudes had a profound effect on me. He was the guy that stopped to help me with a blowout with his entire family of 6 in tow. I was on the side of the road for almost 4 hours at this point. Big Jeep, blown rear tire, had a spare but no jack. I had signs in the window of the car, big signs that said need a jack, and even offered money. No dice. Right as I'm about to give up and just hitch out of there, a van pulls over and a dude bounds out. He sizes the situation up and calls for his youngest daughter who speaks English. He conveys through her that he has a jack but it's too small for the Jeep, so we'd need to brace it. He produces a saw from the van and cuts a log out of a downed tree on the side of the road, rolls it over and puts his jack on top. And bam, we're in business. I start taking the wheel off, and if you can believe it, I broke his tire iron. It was one of those collapsible ones, and I wasn't careful, so I snapped the head I needed clean off. No worries, though. He runs back to the van, gives it to his wife, and she's gone in a flash, down the road to buy a tire iron. She's back in 15 minutes, and we finished the job with a little sweat and cussing. The log had started to give, so it got stressful, but I was a very happy man. We're both filthy and sweaty, so the wife produces a large water jug for us to wash our hands in. I tried to put a 20 in the man's hand, but he wouldn't take it, so instead I gave it to his wife as quietly as I could. I thanked them up one side and down another. I asked the little girl where they live, thinking maybe I could send them a gift for being so awesome, but she says they live in Mexico. They're here so that Mom and Dad can pick peaches for the next few weeks, and after that they're going to go pick cherries and go back home. She asked if I've had lunch, and when I told her no, she gives me a tamal from her cooler, the best tamal I've ever had. So to clarify, a family that is undoubtedly poorer than you, me, and just about everyone else on the stretch of road, working on seasonal basis when time is money, took an hour or 2 out of their day to help some strange dude on the side of the road when people in tow trucks were just passing me by. Wow. But we aren't even done yet. I thank them again and walk back to my car and open the foil on the tamal because I'm starving at this point, and what do I find inside? My $20 bill. I whirl around and run up to the van, and the guy rolls his window down. He sees the 20 in my hand and just shaking his head like, no, he won't take it. All I can think to say is, por favor, por favor, por favor, with my hands out. He smiles, shakes his head, and with what looks like great concentration, he makes his best effort to speak to me in English. He says, today you, tomorrow me. He rolls up his window, drives away, and his daughter waves to me in the rear view. I sat in my car eating the best tamal of all time and just cried. It had been a rough year and nothing had gone my way, and this was so out of left field that I could not deal. In the 5 months since, I've changed a couple tires, given rides to gas station, and once went 50 miles out of my way to help a girl get to the airport. I will not accept money. Every time I tell them the same thing that we're through. Today you, tomorrow me. This story changed my life. This post is from like 11 years ago, and it is the type of thing that is so impactful. I have talked with my friends a lot whenever it comes up about like how dude, I'm literally like tearing up. Abby says she's crying. But I've talked a lot about how like it's important to let people grow and evolve and learn, and different things that people have said to me that kind of back up this I guess field of thought. Something that one of my friends said my first year here at college has stuck with me, which is that people need to have the space to grow and learn, but as they figure themselves out, they're going to unwittingly hurt people along the way. And whereas it may be in you to sit there and handle the hurt as well as you can, it's not your responsibility to be hurt as they grow and learn. And I've definitely been there. And so posts like this, reading this type of stuff about people's kindness and about people who do stuff so selflessly really, really changed my worldview. So this post was from like, I think 11 years ago or so. I came across it originally when I was in high school. I think I was in my senior year when I first read it. So this would have been a good 7, 8-ish years ago. And it's one of those things that kind of clicks, and like overnight I was just like, I need to be a better person. Because I read it and I was like, here I am being so cynical, always thinking like, oh well, you know, and of course I was a dumb teenager in high school where I was like, the world's out to get me, nobody cares, nobody understands, I can't believe that people are out here acting like this when, you know, I've done this for them, I've done that, and they still don't appreciate it. Like, you know, like the type of things where like you go through your little phase of like, everything is about me and it never will not be, you know? And so this post, I was like, dude, what? Because it's the type of thing that makes you realize that you can either like live bitter and resentment, or you can make the effort to be that person that extends the helping hand, that is kind, that is making that change. And so like even right now, for those of you who are Catholic or, you know about things that happen in the world, right now it's currently Lent. And typically I try to give something new up every year because I don't want to, if I feel the need to have to do it again, that means it didn't work. And the whole point of Lent is to become a better person, to be, you know, to make a sacrifice that's impactful in your life, but also in a way that helps you be better. He says, be the change you want to see in the world. And yeah, exactly that. And so, like I said, in the past, I've mentioned this one just because it's funny. I've given up like political discussion. I've given up different social media apps. Last year, I gave up sarcasm and toxicity. And this year, while I was trying to think of stuff to give up, I realized like, I don't know if anything that I would give up right now that would be long lasting, because any like vice or bad habit that I'm in, I don't know that 40 days would be enough to change it, right? And regardless, because of things like this that I read, I have kind of been more inspired to like let that be a consistent work in progress, because I might think like, oh, I'm making such woke points today, I sure did my part, and then tomorrow learn that I was so misinformed on everything I was talking about, and I was over here like white knighting for a cause that didn't pertain to me at all. Like all of the war and conflicts overseas, I only know what I'm seeing in the news. And whenever people that are in these spaces are trying to speak, like they're the ones you should listen to, right? And so for this year's Lent, I decided to make the effort not just to be nicer, but to be kinder, because it's really easy to sit there and just like listen to somebody and be like, yes, sure, I'll help you, whatever. But like, I want to make the effort to do it kinder, like this. You do something without expecting anything, without counting favors, without thinking anything. And so like whenever there's been situations recently in which someone has, made that first step towards like apologizing or tying up loose ends, my immediate instinct is to be like, all right, I'm hearing you out, but I'm going to take my time. And this year I've been forcing myself to this Lent period, I've been forcing myself to make the effort to be like, okay, I will accept it. I'm not just like acknowledging it. I will accept it, and I will attempt to move forward along with you. Granted, this doesn't mean like, be a pushover, do whatever you need for other people. Like I just told you, over the spring break, that's my time. I took that time for myself because that's the whole point of a break. If someone needed help with something, sure, I would do it. But like, I'm not going out of my way to also just like drop everything that I care about for the sake of somebody else. It's a delicate balance. And so today you, tomorrow me. As our time does draw to an end, I want to once again thank everyone for listening here on WECS 90.1 FM. You've been listening to Podcast with a K, and I'm your host, Karla with a K, signing off. No new show next week. I won't be here. See you the week after that, though, at the same time, on the same station. New nonsense, maybe new guest. As always, if you're not here in the studio, you still want to participate in the conversation, you can do so on Twitter or on Twitch or on any of WECS FM's social media sites. So thank you so much for listening. I will sign off with a song. We will be listening to Holy Toledo by Green Day.